welcome to another edition of Regina District Industry Education Council Technology Spotlight. Today we have a very special guest. Stephanie, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Well, introduce yourself first, then we'll talk about 54E.
Okay. I am Stephanie Boon. I work for 54E Dev Studios here in Regina. My title is Head of People and Operations, so it's a wide range of things. I've been working in the tech sector for, I guess, the last, I'm aging myself here, 12 plus years, we'll say that. I was an early team member at Gas Buddy and worked there for 10.5 years. I've been at 54E for 5 months now, so.
Yeah, I'm like, besides aging yourself, that's so cool though. You've worked in the technology industry literally your entire adult life, which in Regina too, which is super cool.
Yeah.
So tell me about 54E Dev Studios.
Yeah, we're small, but I guess growing team now of we have about 20 people.
Small team.
Yeah.
That's not a small team.
It was a small team 5 months ago. We're a small team of tech savvy thinkers, mediocre golfers, and robotics enthusiasts is what I like to say. But we've created a mobile app. And we just launched to the public. It's called One Shot Golf, and basically One Shot Golf gives users control of real-world golfing robots to play competitively golf against people
that are located in a warehouse in Regina somewhere.
Yeah, so you're actually controlling a real robot, a putting robot that puts an actual golf ball into an actual hole located in our warehouse here in Regina.
I'm like, this is the point where you bring out your phone, iOS, and you just search One Shot Golf.
One Shot Golf, yeah, it's in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store for Android. Yeah. So
was somebody at the Wascana Country Club and was just like, I'm sick of this, I just want to be able to golf on my phone? Where did, because I love golf, and I'm like, the more I think about this, I'm like, oh, you could probably challenge your buddies. There's probably so many other things that are going to come out of this, and I'm like, oh no, in a very good way.
Yeah.
Where did it come from?
Yeah, so I think golf was really, really popular sport in North America. So I think that's the avenue that they chose golf first. I think the connected reality technology that we created here really could be used in other avenues, not just sports. But we just found that esports was such a booming thing now, and with the pandemic hitting, the connected part of being able to play with friends and whatnot it was a good move for us, and so that's kind of how things started with the golf.
So tell me, how many holes are you guys building?
Our warehouse, we have 11,000 square foot warehouse right now, and we're building 90 holes out of that warehouse. So
you're not going to get bored of the game anytime soon?
No. We're hoping to add a lot of creativity. Each course is 5 holes, and each course we've given it kind of a themed experience. So we have a couple that are pirate themed. We have an underwater themed one, a deep sea adventure. You said there was a North End Regina one where gophers pop up? Yeah. I named it the North End Regina one. She did. Yeah. That one is called Golf Madness. That was the first course that we built. But yeah, definitely there's a gopher hole that is quite challenging. I'm still very, very terrible at it. I was like, that's my next question. Like, so how good are you? I'm not very good. I try very hard. Golf is like one of those sports that, I golf once a year, and it was usually at the Gas Buddy golf tournament back in the day, and I love it. I love golf so much, can't find enough time to do it, but you make a really, really good shot, and you're so pumped, and then you miss it, and you're just extremely aggravated for a little while. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I just go for the cards. I was about to say drinking, but this is for high school students. Yeah. So tell us about your role. What's your day-to-day like? Do you show up
like I can see the whole office. So obviously you're not just showing up to the cubicle. That's awesome.
No.
What's your day like?
It's a little bit all over the place. When you're kind of an early team member in a small startup, you kind of, the whole team is really all hands on deck. So you kind of just have to jump in and help out wherever. I'd like to say, job titles can be a little bit fluid in these stages where, I come from kind of more of a people and culture background, or that's what I've kind of done the last 10 years. But here I'm doing kind of much more of the operation side too. So anything from, obviously there's the hiring, I make sure that all of these brilliant minds that I work with get paid and have good benefits. And basically, we're staying on top of support, do social media. Right now we're looking into areas, marketing, where we can, really kind of collaborate a little bit with. I just spoke with one of the local podcasts here the other day to kind of do some collaboration with that. So it's kind of a little all over the place, and obviously helping both of our co-founders with whatever they need. In regards to the warehouse, I'm not technical, I can't code, but my contributions have been kind of my arts and crafts afternoon Fridays, where I make the point signs for the holes. So just helping out wherever I can.
I love it, but you've been in the tech sector and you're not behind 4 screens. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think I've ever seen that many screens that somebody's been working on. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But someone could get into the startup space without having that background.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool, I think, on your behalf.
Yeah.
The other side, I feel like I would want that job though, because I don't want to do the same thing every day. And it sounds like, I think there was a story early on at Facebook where that's not my job, would never exist. And I'm like, I'm guessing you've never said that before. And it's more so the opposite. You want to try to help on anything that someone needs help on.
Yeah, definitely. Just kind of lend a hand where needed. Even early on at Gas Buddy, it was kind of a very similar role for me, where I kind of had my hands in a little bit of everything. And it gets to a point with the startups when they start taking off a little bit, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, we need to focus some resources. Or, at that time I was doing a lot of the online advertising for the Gas Buddy website. So that was before mobile was really a thing. And it got to a point where it was like, okay, the advertising needs full-time attention, but also we were growing the team and the whole HR side of it too. So
how do you manage when you're being pulled in so many directions, when you're probably really wanting to help as many people as you can? How do you manage that? It's just those 3 things. You were busy.
Yeah, no, definitely busy. I think there's a lot of good resources and different platforms and stuff available now that we can use versus when I started at Gas Buddy, it was a lot of spreadsheets, tracking and stuff like that. The Slack didn't exist then either. So Slack is a huge tool for us. We can communicate quickly with our team at the warehouse, or check in with people. Applicant tracking systems, that didn't really exist back then.
Did you find that we'll go to those early Gas Buddy days, were you guys inventing a lot of that stuff? It's like you didn't have all the things we have now.
Yeah.
But it was, you kind of knew what you needed to create, so you kind of put it together.
Yeah, definitely lived in Excel for many years. There was a lot of spreadsheets. We didn't have the G Suite, not right off the start anyway. So a lot of emailing spreadsheets around and just making sure that emails, because the biggest thing, one of the things I always say too is, the applicant tracking system. So Gas Buddy, we would get a ton of resumes in there all the time. And candidate experience has always been something very, very passionate about, making sure that you're just keeping those lines of communication open. But if you're not getting back to somebody when you're saying you're going to get back to somebody, when you have 50, 60 emails coming into your inbox a day, like trying to manage that. So yeah, the applicant tracking system is like, I mean, we're not quite there yet where we need one, but that would be like the first thing we would vouch for any startup. Make sure, yeah.
So tell us about those early days. And if folks if you're not familiar with the Gas Buddy story, really cool startup out of Regina, Saskatchewan, was acquired at one point, and maybe I'll let you tell that story, but let's go back to you were employee number 8, correct?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
My fanboy stories, I got a tour of the office one time, pool table or ping pong table, there was this whole case of Gas Buddy swag, I remember. And I was just like, my eyes lit up as a marketer of being like, you guys care about the brand. It was such a cool, I don't know, from an outsider looking in, it was always such a pride piece. And I used the bottle until I broke it. And then I still have the shirt and I still wear it.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell me about it, employee number 8.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun. You know, the idea of Gas Buddy and how it helped consumers every day find, you know, the cheapest gas prices on their daily commute. You know, it had a real purpose, and it was very community driven. There was a hardcore community of users that were almost like cult-like a little bit, that would, you know, meet up in Twin Cities. Gas Prices was like the first site that launched, and they would have a meetup, like Gas Buddy user meetup, where they just go and meet, because the forums and everything, early days of Gas Buddy were so big. So it was just a really cool concept, and knowing that we were helping people save money was just, you know, something that our team really bought into, and it was kind of it's just a ton of fun.
So you started as employee 8. By the time you had left, how many employees were there?
I don't know the exact number, but between Canada and the US, it was probably around like 120 or 130, I think.
And so acquired from out of Boston, correct? The head office moved to Boston?
Head office was out of Boston, acquired by a company down in the Washington, D.C. area. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so acquired in 2013.
We'll find a press release or network that we can show right now for that. But any cool stories about what did you start as? As number 8?
It's kind of a hybrid role.
I feel like you're getting a lot of these like.
Yeah, I'm like the hybrid role person. I started as kind of an office manager, but really came on to help out Dustin Coupel, who was one of the founders at Gas Buddy. He tackled a lot of the business side of the company, so definitely was kind of the right hand person for him for quite a while. Yeah.
And you're getting an education this entire time because you guys are going through uncharted territory at this point.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of app companies out of Saskatchewan that have paved the way for you. To me, you guys were the ones that paved the way, which is kind of cool to say.
Yeah. You know, it was interesting because when I remember having my interview there, and I came from more of a kinesiology/personal training background. When I moved to Regina, I got on with Gas Buddy, and I just remember the interview being asked some questions about, you know, very techy things and not knowing the answer to them. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's no way I'm getting this job. And I ended up getting the job. And my first day, I remember having kind of like a printout of terms that I should get to know, and a lot of it was around the Google Ad Manager and online advertising, things that I didn't have a ton of experience in. So I was, you know, basically took that list and was in there like a dirty shirt at home in the evening, like Googling, watching videos, like trying to understand what these terms actually meant.
But that's so cool. They didn't hire you obviously for your skill because you didn't have it yet. So your attitude must have been enough in that interview that they said, we can just teach her.
I guess so.
That's super cool. But I think about what goes through the mind, especially to your first job interview or not being that confident. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you just try to sell yourself, and you even said you didn't nail every question either.
No, definitely not.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so Like, tell us a story. What was it like? Did big oil execs come through all the time? Like, was Shell on the phone? What was startup life at Gaston?
It was a ton of fun. Definitely a steep learning curve. We were, a small team. First office that I worked out of was over at Truesdale, which quickly refilled right after I started that.
I didn't know there was an office in Truesdale.
That was,
Interesting.
Yeah. And then in 2010, we moved over to Innovation Place.
Yeah.
We're in the old cultivator office first there, and then moved over to team research. But yeah, very close-knit team. Jason and Dustin, they're amazing. And, the culture really stems down from leadership, and they had instilled this amazing culture already. So getting to be part of that and kind of be the ambassador for it as a group was
you say that comes down from leadership, and this isn't the first time I've heard the culture there was really good.
Yeah.
Were there things they did or things that you experienced that you were like, this isn't like most companies? Is there anything that you can pinpoint that is like, this is why?
I think I can answer that in a couple of ways. I think, me personally, when I think of leadership, those guys were really kind of in the trenches with things with us. It wasn't, kind of like dictating off or delegating off grunt tasks. They were really heavy in the trenches with us. But, we kind of had like a work hard, play hard mentality there too. So we had a ton of team building things that we did one a month for sure. We did things where employee recognition was like huge. We did, MVP Fridays where people were actually doing it.
Yeah, I remember your social media.
Yeah.
I was envious at times because it felt like the team cared about everyone there more than I was like, and I thought we had a good team. I'm like, you guys did it so well. Oh, you're bringing back memories.
Yeah. And then we have a little bit of a prize wheel that they get to spin, and we have random things on there, there's gift cards.
Oh my god, I want to steal this.
Yeah.
We might steal this.
Some bigger items. Some people wanted a switch here a couple weeks ago off the wheel. So everyone just works super hard, and it's a way to kind of celebrate the team and one MVP.
MVP Friday.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Okay, you kind of touched on your education back a little while ago, but let's go. You like this startup world. You're good at being a really good team. To me, that's being a good team member. Somebody that's always going to say yes and help out. To me, you've understood the team thing. I want to know, what were you like in high school? Did you do sports? What were you, what?
Yeah, I was big into sports. I grew up in a very small town in Saskatchewan called Lucky Lake, Saskatchewan. Yeah, 350 people. So my graduating class, we had the biggest one still in history, I guess, was 32 people.
Oh my god.
And so I grew up playing, in a small town there's not a lot to do. So I grew up playing competitive basketball, volleyball, hockey,
Cool.
in a little bit of everything. So the team mindset was really kind of,
That makes so much sense.
drilled into my head early. My dad was always a hockey coach too, so from a very, very early age, I've always been around the team, I guess.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I coached volleyball for years, and so I've you can see things you learn early on in coaching and sport that I think you could take into business. Yeah. But for yourself and your roles, being a very you're a little bit competitive. But I think that's what comes out of why you do things that you're not necessarily expected to do, or you'll do things out of your way to help others, just because there's a competitive side to us. So where'd you go to school after high school? Did you go right into school?
I did work a couple years. I tried 1 year of business in Calgary and played college hockey there for a semester, which was a lot of work. But I just, at that point, there was a lot of things in our high school that, there was no really guidance counselors, just really unsure, nothing really to kind of prep you for the real world in regards to your career. So I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do, so I worked, and then kinesiology was kind of always something I was interested in, being an athlete. So it made sense. So I chose to take my personal fitness training diploma at Edmonton at 8 and worked out of Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta for 4 years, doing that until and then we eventually moved to Regina. And I got out with Gas Buddy right away, and Gas Buddy hit kind of a road for me where I was heavily involved in the online advertising side on the websites, and then the team was growing. So we sat down and it was like, okay, which direction do I want to go? I'm not a salesperson. I can maybe sell a job, like sell a position to somebody, but so we ended up hiring somebody that did the advertising a million times better than I would have ever did. And I chose to go down the people and culture route. And so I did take human resource management just to get some basic fundamentals, but the majority of my knowledge has been self-taught and on-the-job training, really.
It's a really cool career path. I feel like, but I'm like, I more people need to understand that startups and companies under the size of 100 employees is largely what a lot of us are going to be working at. What kind of skill set or what do you think people need to apply to be that person that can either learn on the fly or you don't say no to a lot of things, but that means you have confidence in either your learning or the people around you to help teach you. What is that? Is that a skill set? Is that a mindset?
I think, I've been pretty fortunate to work with some rock solid teams, some very rock solid core teams that are going into growth mode in a company. But I think, for people and when we recruiting for people, it's people that are good at problem solving and they're curious, they have that entrepreneurial mindset, and that's not my job. It really doesn't exist. So I think I try to, when I'm doing interviews, I really try to be as transparent as possible about the positions, and maybe a little too transparent sometimes. Working in the startup world isn't all rainbows and unicorns. It's very much, it can be chaotic at the best of times, and I like to just say that the job descriptions are very, very fluid. So if just look at my role here right now, it's an all hands on deck mentality. So the team side of it is huge. But I think, we talked about this a little bit earlier too, but just when the hurricanes were hitting, the Gas Buddy team pulled together, pulled an all-nighter, built up the hurricane tracker to help the users. I think everyone just kind of, even if they weren't there actually coding, everyone kind of
I'm getting chills as you're saying this. I'm that's such a cool, think about being able to say that to somebody or a family member. After that, I stayed up all night making sure that we could build this out to make sure those people are going to be even a fraction safer than before.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So, what's the future hold for our friend Pepsi? Is that
Pepsi?
I thought you said Pepsi. I've been calling him Pepsi this whole time. I'm like, why would you say Pepsi? It makes no sense. Pepsi.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Future. We've been launched now for a couple weeks. We did kind of a soft launch. We launched the game now for a couple weeks. We are getting super overwhelmingly positive feedback. So we're building up the 90 holes right now, and hopefully we can.
I'm going to talk to your agent the next time I talk to you because you guys are going to be all over the place.
Yeah, hopefully we can continue to enhance the experience for our users, build some more holes, and then the connected reality tech, like we said, it can be probably in multiple different avenues, so potentially we can look at that in the future, but right now we're focusing on
I'm going to open heart surgery? No, I want more golf. Let's be serious.
Yeah.
What would you say to yourself if you got to give a piece of advice to yourself back in high school? What would you tell your high school self?
I would tell myself to pay more attention in the math and sciences and become developer personally. That is, if I could go back in time, that would be something I would have 100% did. Having worked in this field, I think I was just talking with the team here earlier. When I was in high school, the computer science classes didn't exist. I didn't know it was a thing. I had a couple of cousins that work in this field out in Alberta, and go to their house and they're ripping computers apart, but I didn't fully understand that because we just were kind of like, I guess, a little sheltered of it. But yeah, definitely.
You're a part of a robot golf course.
Yes, yeah.
That's awesome.
Exactly. So I would, for people just starting out or trying to figure out where they want to go, I would definitely find something you're super passionate about right now. Do some research. The Saskatchewan tech scene is, up and coming. It's amazing to see collabs in Saskatoon and Cultivator. The Hack Regina has a Slack channel. There's just so many resources at people's dispense right now. So
that's a great note. Like on that note, and this was one of my questions I wanted to ask. Knowing the history of the founders, they could do this anywhere they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Why here? Like, why Saskatchewan?
Yeah, I mean, Dustin and Jason, like Gas Buddy, they were born and raised in Sedley, Saskatchewan, just outside of Regina here.
There's a lot of hockey there.
Yeah. both farm kids, so a lot of us. I'm not born and raised from Regina, but Saskatchewan's home to me and always will be. And I think, like I said, the tech scene is just up and coming. It's super supportive. We do a lot of things with Cultivator, whether it's Dustin's supervisor over there, with the 24-hour startup, or the 24-hour startup coming here right away. So we like to get involved and help out and share our knowledge. And we learn from a lot of these great startups too.
I feel like the ecosystem is so much bigger now.
It totally is.
But like you're saying, like the amount of employees and where they used to come from, Gas Buddy was on that list.
Yeah.
And so
Gas Buddy or IQ.
That's what I mean. Like it's cool to see like one technology company happen, even if it gets acquired.
Mm-hmm.
There's this trickle off effect of all these other startups now, and like between IQ and Gas Buddy, maybe Jump might be the other one, but everybody came from somewhere, but now works at something too.
Yeah.
But there's also this camaraderie that I think that people respect others, and I don't know, it's cool to see in other industries they're not necessarily that. I don't know if they don't get along as well as the technology scene, but that has to come from somewhere. And it sounds like you guys and the culture you originally had was very much encouraged that.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm having these realizations and I realize sometimes when I say things, they're not questions, but I'm like, buddy, I'm like, I just really like your story, I'm sorry. What gets you excited? What gets you really, really happy in the morning?
I would have to say, obviously going back to the team and just the line of work that I do. I was just at the warehouse this morning. I love that we have built something and now it's being used by I don't know if the average rounds per day, but between 1,800 and 2,000 rounds per day or something like that. But just hearing the robots going nonstop over there after everyone's kind of put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the project and seeing it to fruition.
I can imagine.
It's very, very rewarding.
I remember in university being like, we just want to work with cool people and work on cool stuff. And I'm like, that's what you guys get to do.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
You read anything, listened to anything good lately? Books, podcasts?
Well, I'm more on the people and culture side. I'm a little bit of a geek there, but some of my favorite podcasts there, Culture Amp has, there's an HR happy hour one that's really, really cool. One of the things that I always say too is I don't love the term human resources, and I will never refer to myself as that. I don't love it because it just kind of makes
Humans are
everyone.
resources. They're much more.
Yeah.
I feel you
Everyone
there.
sounds like the people in your team are tools in a toolbox, and you just, you know.
Thank you. I appreciate this. We
Yes.
should get rid of HR and let's make
Yeah.
it something better.
Yeah, and I think a lot of, you know, big companies out there now are, you see a lot of people operations or something, so they're going down the right path. But people and culture is really kind of what I love and what I've always been passionate about. I think employee engagement, candidate experience, like that full circle look at people and culture is just so important. You know, instill it at an early stage in the company, and then as you grow, and eventually you get to a point where you don't have to do a lot of headhunting for positions if you grow your company following kind of those steps and have those employees kind of brand ambassadors for your company.
That's amazing. I'm like, we've only talked for about 40 minutes and I'm already like, I have 3 things I have to write down after this. Like, you've taught me so much in this short amount of time. If a student wants to reach out or find what you guys are doing, what's the best way? Social media, website, just download the app?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more, I guess, about 54E, our website is 54e.dev, so DEV. That app, One Shot Golf, is available on the Apple App Store and Google Play. And yeah.
I'm looking forward to playing.
Yeah.